Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Siti Nur Aimi Fitri Binti Ahmad Ridzalman, student number 2020-954277. This is component 2, Introduction to Speech, practice 1. Have you ever noticed the different type of font is used all around us? Or have you ever wondered why the particular font is used? Here's the first thing you need to know is generally there are two types of group of typeface. There is serif and sans serif. Have you heard of those? So basically there are difference between the two, serif and sans serif, and the dissimilarity between the font is basically their construction of the font, or in easier way to understand, the anatomy of the letter. So here is serif and here is sans serif. In typography studies, serif refers to small line or stroke that is built in the font anatomy. For example, the Times New Roman typeface, we would notice that the font in Times New Roman typeface has this little tail attached to the end of certain part of the letter. So that is serif, like this. Meanwhile, what is sans serif? Sans in French basically means without. Hence, sans serif essentially means font structure that is without little stroke, like this. So you can notice how this serif font have the little stroke on it, and it has thin and thick line, where meanwhile sans serif has simple clean shape. So now that you know the difference between serif and sans serif, you might be wondering why are these differences exist, or do they have their own respective function? Yes, it does. This is primarily applies in printing digital related industry. In physical book printing, serif is commonly used. If you don't believe me, you can take any book and look for yourself. Here I have a few random books that I took from my shelf, and they are all printed in serif font. Most of the book and newspaper printing will use this stylized serif font. And why is that? This is because there is a psychological research discovered that reading with tail font can help readers to read with no fatigue. The reason for this is because when the letter has stroke, it gives impression that the word has continuous effect, and this will help readers to read in long text like novel and newspaper without feeling tired. If sans serif was used with its clean cut shape characteristic, it will give impression of individuality and can cause difficulty for readers to continue reading, and will easily cause fatigue, especially for very long text. For example, I have here a novel wrote by local author. I read this book around 4 years ago, and when I read this, I had no advanced knowledge about this serif sans serif effect yet. And for someone who read a lot like me, a book like this thick, not so thick, just a little thin, I usually can finish this book like in a week. But to my surprise, this book is very difficult to finish. Not that the storyline is boring. It is actually really interesting. However, it is printed in sans serif font. So when I learned about this serif and sans serif reading effect, it occurred to me that, oh, this is why I have difficulty to finish this book, because the letter makes me tired to read and hard for me to focus and continue reading. However, sans serif makes a great title or headlines because it stands out characteristic. Even so, that is not all sans serif do. In days like today, where everything we do in daily life involve using gadgets like smartphone, laptop, television, all those digital screen, we will usually see a lot of usage of sans serif fonts. The reason for this is because digital media screen use pixel system. So in order to make every single letter displayed in crystal clear image, we are encouraged to use sans serif font. This is because of sans serif characteristic itself, where it is have a simple clean cut, so it makes it easier for the pixelate system to copy and catch every shape and curve of the letter. So we can imagine with serif, with all its thin and thick line and all those little stroke, it seems very unnecessary, and it will make the letter is not easy to read when it is on pixelate system. Imagine if the sentence is too small, and using serif font, the pixelate system cannot catch every sharp cut shape of the serif. It will appear that the sentence like combine to each other, and you don't know what in sentence that, because it all combined to each other. So now you will notice how every computer or smartphone and their default font will be sans serif. I think the commonly sans serif font is used for this digital gadget right now named Roboto. Yes, Roboto. Same goes to television. That is why even if the subtitle or some news line on your television screen is too small, but you can still read it because it is clear with sans serif. Now that we know about serif and sans serif, we can appropriately apply the usage of each of the characteristic in respective area. For example, if you want to make thesis or something, or for the long reading text that you will print later, you might want to use serif, and for and to use your smartphone easier, maybe you want to use sans serif font. I know a lot of people love to use fancy fonts on their smartphone, but sometimes if the font is beautiful but not really compatible for your eyes, it will irritate you. It will make you tired to read or tired to use. With that, I love to believe that everything that exists in this world have their own reason and have their own respective function. And when we know about it, we can use it respectively. I think that's all from me today. Thank you for watching and stay safe.